Grab yourself a tall and non-fat latte with caramel drizzle and sit on down. It's time for the Untitled Show about nerdy stuff with your host, Tim Estern and Michael J. Crawford. Today, Tim might continue their travel through time.
I can hear you, Michael.
Nobody cares.
So are we done with the intro?
Yourself a tall and non-fat latte with caramel drizzle and sit on down. It's time for the Untitled Show.
Michael, turn on your stream.
With your host, Tim Estern and Michael J. Crawford.
And we're live. Michael, introduce us.
What? What was that?
It was playing multiple times for some reason.
Oh, lordy.
What was playing multiple times? I have no idea
The
what you're talking
intro, it must have been on my side. It's fixed now, though. Everybody got to hear the
because
intro.
you were yelling at me to stop my stream. I haven't even been able to get it started yet. And I'm like, what are you talking
Well, I wasn't
about?
even really talking about that because we were hearing the intro multiple times. Must have been on my side, but the issue has been corrected now. So there's that.
All right, welcome to the Untitled Show. James is showing his professional production quality skills with a Z on the end because, you know, he's got awesome skills. This is the Untitled Show about nerdy stuff, and this is our first broadcast on the Untitled Show channel.
It's going
here
excellent, by the way. I think,
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah, James, I gotta, let's take all everybody give a round of applause, clap in the chat for James and his technical mastery in getting the show off without a hitch for our first episode on the new channel. So, hey, James, come on, Tim, clap.
And I even told him beforehand, we got to stop a lot of this unprofessional stuff, and this is how it starts off.
Yes, so thank you, James, for making sure that we are even more professional than usual.
By the way, don't get rid of the cat. I want to see the cat.
No, the cat's not allowed.
The cat's adorable. Leave it up there.
All right, so, So I can't get the other stream to work for some reason. It's dropping frames, and I'm not going to sit here and worry about that. If anybody goes to if they see that stream sitting there, they'll see, oh, look, the description just says to go to the other channel. For those of you that are here, thank you so much. Spread the word. This is the place to be. Make sure you subscribe to the Untitled Show channel because we're going to be having more than just the podcast. We're going to start doing regular reviews as well and all sorts of fun stuff. And maybe, just maybe, you'll get a peek at Tim without his shirt.
Bow, chicka, bow, bow.
But that's not why we're doing the show today. Today we're doing the show where James is going to be going without a shirt because, that's what we do here.
About the Facebook group.
Oh yeah, I don't. James, you tell them about the Facebook group. You got that set up, and you got your ugly face on the show now. So you got to tell us what's up with the Facebook thing. You are our webmaster and social media head. So what's going on?
By the way, guys, we want to tell you about an awesome thing coming up called the Facebook group, also known as Everything Cinema. So this is going to be a great place for you guys to go. It's not only going to be about the show, but we're going to be having everything to do with movies, television, all that fun stuff. Hopefully having news and having some maybe some like D-rated actors coming on, and you can't say that it won't happen. So you need to go ahead and check the description below. Click on that. We're 10 away, and then we can become official and legit. I need you to share this on all your Facebooks as well. You show up, but you need to also be sharing this Facebook. Don't forget to like the show as well.
So join our Facebook, share our Facebook on your Facebook, share the show on your Facebook. Do you all understand? Because, this is the show that gives you your marching orders.
It's the professionality of it.
There's nothing audiences like more than being told what to do.
Exactly. That's what our
Motto.
our focus groups and stuff are telling us is that people want to be told what to do. And so the best way to do that, of course, is to just tell people. So this is what you're going to do. You are going to share us on your Facebook. You're going to, in fact, I think that you should all be actively trying to promote us on every form of social media you can, and getting everybody that you can to subscribe to us so that this can become the greatest channel in the history of YouTube, which it really already is if we want to get technical. I mean, that intro was so awesome. You know, it just doesn't get any better.
Yeah, it was so awesome. They heard it like 6 times playing at different intervals, so they're going to love it.
Well, and that's just our awesome professionalism, giving the people what they want.
Another thing that people want too is like 6 minutes in and we're still talking about us instead of the actual topic. So.
Well, I was trying to get to the topic, sir. Oh, if you would let me continue.
Let the host host the show.
Yes, I am trying to host the show here. So here's what we're doing is that, Tim.
Yes?
You saw yourself a little movie.
I did.
Yeah, so you saw the epic, I don't know, would you call it a horror or a thriller, or what the hell would you even call the category?
It's funny because it gets marketed as a horror film, and it's really more of a political thriller than anything else.
Right. Well, the first Purge was a home invasion.
Right.
The second one was more or less just like, zombies on the street kind of thing, except with not zombies, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The Purge is basically just a very weak concept for an excuse for different types of films.
Well,
At least that's how I see it.
The basic premise of the Purge concept, it's interesting because I've read on both left-wing and right-wing sites. The right-wing ones, it's like, oh, this is just an anti-Republican screed. And then the other side is like, oh, this is just terrible because it makes poor people look like murderous thugs. And they're both right. Because it's like, if it's trying to be an anti-Republican thing, yes, it does have, the group known as the NFFA, the New Founding Fathers of America, which comes off as a very Tea Party-esque group. But when they say that they have the Purge as a way to cut down on overpopulation of the lesser classes, you can't really fault them because basically when they have the Purge, everybody goes batshit crazy and just thinks that raping and murdering and pillaging is just fine because it's only for 12 hours. So, I mean, in that regard, it's really kind of hard to nail it down as to what the message is of it. That said, the Purge election year, in my opinion, is the best of the 3 films. I've seen all 3. This one, the NFFA is coming after a senator who wants to end the Purge because of how terrible it is, and so they launch a siege against her house and come after her. And the hero of the Purge Anarchy, played by Frank Grillo, who was Crossbones in Captain America. He is a bodyguard for the senator in this one now, and he's trying to save her. And it's a low budget series. The first one I thought was basically a dud, but I thought the second one was decent, and this one's actually not bad. And it's like 85 minutes. And it moves at a really good pace. It accomplishes what it needs to do for a low budget B film, and I really enjoyed it actually, much more than Independence Day.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. Well, I doubt I would enjoy it more than Independence Day, but I would say that the first Purge, I would agree, I think was kind of a waste, but I did enjoy the second Purge film.
Yeah.
So I might give this one a shot when it comes out on Blu-ray. I just didn't want to pay the big bucks to go to the theater and see it.
Yeah, I went on a matinee.
So let me ask you this: is she a level 4, whatever? Because you remember in the original Purge, they were talking level 4 people couldn't be attacked or killed.
Right.
Does it go into that, like how they try to bypass it or what?
Well, yeah. The NFFA, what they do is they announce, the restriction against level 4s is being lifted so it'll be more fair, when in reality it's just so they can get her and take her out.
Right.
Because they don't want her to end the purge. And I thought it was really well done. And, it's mostly a cast of no-name actors. And it's so funny because when you think of all the money spent on Independence Day and all the money spent on the BFG, and this little thing that cost $10 million is probably going to make about 100 and make a huge profit, whereas the other two are huge duds.
Yeah.
Financially.
Speaking of duds, I went to see one of those. I went to see the BFG with my family, and I will say it's really disappointing to know that this is one of Spielberg's worst box office performances, because it's certainly not his worst film. The BFG is a Disney film about giants, and it's based on the Doll book. If you haven't read the book, do yourself a favor and don't read the book before seeing the movie if you plan on seeing the movie, because I've never read the book. I mostly liked the film, but it had a couple of glaring problems, and the thing is, like, it wasn't as big a problem for my wife because she read the book, but at the same time, when she told me what was in the book, I was like, well, why the heck didn't they do that? So the basic premise here is that there is a magical land of giants, and these giants have existed since the dawn of Earth. They are all as old as the Earth. They do not reproduce. They simply are. And there's 10 giants total. There is the BFG, and yes, that is his name. Well, actually, he doesn't really have a name. He's just called the BFG by the little girl for Big Friendly Giant. And then the other 9 giants all have names. Now, their names are things like Bone Crusher, Man Gobbler, Child Snatcher, and stuff like that. So all their names are like these horrifying names implying that they eat and destroy people. And yet, throughout the entire film, all they do is lie around and look ugly, and at one point try to kill a little girl.
Hey, are you body shaming them?
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is that it made no sense to me, because now I've not read the book, but when this little girl sees the BFG at the very beginning of the film, and of course the giants are very secretive about their existence, and so because he sees her, he has to grab her and kidnap her so that nobody finds out the giants are real. Okay, so, and the BFG looks like a little old man, so it's like, okay, so now you have a little old man snatching away a little girl because she saw him in the dark, and he doesn't want anybody to have his secret exposed. But, as creepy as that may sound, it's actually a delightful children's adventure. So he takes her to his house, where she's going to live for the rest of her natural life because she saw a giant. And he tells them about he tells her about these other giants and how mean they are, and that they eat people, and they refer to people as human beings rather than human beings because they think of us as food. And you hear a lot of talk about that, but you never see the other 9 giants do anything even the slightest bit aggressive. Then the BFG and the girl leave, and they go to England, and they recruit the Queen of England and to try and get the world's military to help stop these giants that have posed so far no threat whatsoever to the world. And then they just say, oh yeah, look, children have been disappearing. Huh? When? What? And so then it made no freaking sense at all. And so then the military shows up and they have this epic battle with the giants. I'll tell you that when my wife told me that in the book, the other 9 giants, when the BFG goes off dream catching and helping people, when he's off doing that, the other 9 giants are apparently going off to different places around the world and eating people. And then they come back to their giant land talking about, oh, I love them Italians. They taste good, and it made more sense. because they actually established that these giants are going out every single night and killing people and eating them and then bragging about it. But in this, there's no reason for the military to go after these giants. They're basically just lying around and being fat and not doing anything. So I'm going to get about a 5 out of 10. I think that it was harmless. If your kids enjoy it, great. But would I go out of my way to see it? Probably not. So what would you give The Purge out of 10?
I'd give it a 6.5.
Well, there you go. So if you're debating between The Purge and the BFG, take the kids to The Purge.
Kids of all ages love The Purge.
It'll be a much better experience.
During The Purge, it's legal to kill your kids.
Oh God.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so James,
was the epic? But was the fighting epic at least? At any
No.
point? So it wasn't at all?
No, I mean, well, it was a kids' movie, so the fighting, the military shows up and executes an entire mission without firing a single shot, because you wouldn't have blood or anything.
Well, let's remember Spielberg's the guy that removed all the guns from Prince of E.T. So,
well, and didn't he remove like cigarettes and stuff like that too?
Yeah.
The political correctness of this movie is astounding. Speaking of which, James, you have some exciting news from the world of comics.
I do. Well, I mean, we were going to talk about Iron Man. And now how Iron Man is going, I did not expect to be called out on that. How Iron Man
You're the one
is now going to be a 15-year-old girl. Now, to be fair, though, unlike what we saw in Thor, where they just took the name Thor and they just made it a woman, this one we have a 15-year-old girl who worked for MIT. So we're also we're having kind
Worked
of
or was a student at?
I'm sorry.
Worked or was a student at?
Student. I apologize. She's a student. So I like that they're trying to tie in the MCU to a little bit of degree, it seems like, because if you remember in the MCU, he gave grants and funded everybody. Anything that they wanted to do, all of their stuff had been funded. So I think that was kind of a play on that. She creates an Iron Man suit. Tony finds out after the Civil War II, because apparently they decided to do it twice. I don't know anything about that. He retired for good, because, they all retire for good. And now made her the new Iron Man. And I don't hate that as much as you guys seem to hate that. I don't... It's not like Thor. It is different in some respects, I think.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, first of all, unlike what DC has done with some of their politifying their characters, they're not retconning anything. And I mean, granted, the continuity of Marvel is just as screwy as DC right now, but they're not retconning Tony Stark, that Tony Stark is a 15-year-old black girl. But they didn't with Thor either. I mean, the female Thor is Jane Foster using the hammer. The female Wolverine is X-23, a female clone of Logan. So they're all distinct and different characters from what they were before. And, they're technically additions to the Marvel Universe, which makes it a little bit less offensive than if they just say, oh, by the way, this guy we've been publishing for the last 40 years is gay. Even though he's been married and, well, he's gay because it's popular. However, I think that, and so if she is literally going to be called Iron Man and flying around looking like a hot 15-year-old black chick, they need a different name.
Yeah, that was something I was going to bring up too. The fact that she is sexualized and 15 beyond belief is...
Yeah, that picture does not look like a 15-year-old the way that they drew that picture. Right. That cover, I believe.
Yeah, do you have a picture you can bring up?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now while we're talking.
That's the one that was on all the news sites.
Yeah, and I mean, let's say, Iron Man, and because there have been female people using Stark technology before. For example, Rescue, which is a Pepper Potts Iron Man.
Right.
And of course, I guess it's not politically correct enough to know that Tony Stark has Pepper Potts in an iron suit and his best friend, who happens to be a black guy, also in an iron suit. No, so now we got to put a black girl in an iron suit with him. But what the hell is that she's wearing there? How is that in the slightest bit going to be an effective suit of armor when it's a freaking it's a sleeveless half shirt?
Well, I don't think that's her armor. I think that's,
I don't think that's the armor either.
I think that's
we don't know. I mean, but I'm just saying. I mean, this, and if that's her proportionate size, I assume that's Tony standing behind her.
Yes.
And I mean, okay, so she's a little tiny 15-year-old. And so now, I mean, especially like you were mentioning the MCU, it seems like Tony Stark is like habitually wanting to put 15-year-olds in danger, I guess. Oh, have you met Peter Parker?
Get out there and fight my battle.
That was another thing, too. I mean, it is consistent that he seems to be wanting to take superheroes and... or take young people and make them superheroes. So at least he's staying consistent when it comes to that, it seems like.
Right. Well, that's because they're building up to the mega series coming up about how he's a pedophile or something.
Yeah.
Hey, come on. These days, would you really say that's beyond the realm of possibility here?
Oh, I don't.
I mean, with the crap they pulled.
That's.
Remember, Captain America has been Hydra all along.
This is going to be another meeting we're going to have after the show. Is what this is coming down to right here. I don't know. I think she's too sexualized. I agree. I think if they're trying to make a point, and the guy, I'm going to pull up what he said in just a minute. The writer. Last name Bentis, I forget. I didn't even look.
Yeah, Brian Michael Bendis.
Brian Michael Bentis, who is just a wonderful person that I don't wish any harm to, and I definitely don't want to go to hell when he dies. Is so strictly just SJW, radical left about this. And I don't think you have to be. I think it's an interesting... I like it. I think that it could be fun. I don't think that she should be, quote-unquote, Iron Man. I think it would have been cool if she built her own iron suit, and then Tony came and said, all right, this is fine, but you need to make it your own. I think this is how you need to do an effective new character that you want to be similar to the old character, but you want them to bust out and be their own person. Because this has happened. I think this is a wonderful setup. But like you said, she doesn't need to be Iron Man. She can make her own suit and be someone new with Tony guiding her. I think that would be wonderful.
Well, and I would be fine with that. And that's the thing. It's just like we don't need Jane Foster to be Thor, but Jane Foster could be a warrior in her own right or whatever. Just like we got the Beta Ray Bill was an offshoot from Thor. You don't have to simply usurp the most popular characters you have in order to score political points. And of course, with Marvel doing it now with Thor, Wolverine, and now Iron Man is just like stupid.
Firefly. Go ahead.
Well, what? She did build her own suit. That's what I'm talking
about. No, not that. Miss Tracy K said in reference to the pedophile arc.
Yeah, don't give them any ideas.
Yeah, don't give them any freaking ideas.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like Marvel and DC. I mean, let's face it, and I don't know the numbers right now. I don't know if you've looked at all time, but Marvel and DC have not been able to sell a freaking comic book to save their lives in the last decade. The
comic book industry is not doing as well as people think it is.
Right. The only reason the comic book industry gets any attention at all is because it's the inspiration for all big blockbuster movies these days. And so, Superman, has made more money with Man of Steel and Batman v Superman than the last 5 years of comic books from DC.
Oh, by far.
Yeah. And same thing as far as, if you look at the MCU, that has dwarfed what Marvel Comics makes. And, so it's not, Marvel can't push anything on the comics anymore, and nobody's reading it because this is the crap they're putting out. Comic books are supposed to be, and I'm sorry for getting on a tirade here, but my problem with this is, and it's not even this girl that's going to be, Iron sidekick or whatever she's going to be. It's that they're so worried now about trying to do some kind of social justice warrior message. They're so worried now about making a political statement with everything that they do. They're so obsessed now with in the DC Rebirth. I'll tell you, I read the first Rebirth. It wasn't half bad, but that they really have to throw this is the initial first comic book, and they have to throw into the middle of it that some kid is struggling because he's gay. And it's like, nobody else in the entire comic book even mentions their sexuality, but you got to throw the one kid in there that's gay, and he's just staring in the mirror about how horrible it is to be gay. And that's not even a very good message about homosexuality. I mean, you're being stupid. It doesn't have to be a negative. If you want to portray it as something that's a good thing or a normal thing, then you don't have every time you have a gay character in your thing that they're struggling with it. But at any rate, they're so obsessed with this crap that they forgot about the fact that when comic books were popular, and I'm talking about all the way back in the Golden Age and certainly in the Bronze Age when me and Tim were collecting, when comic books were popular, it's because of the fact that they were written for all ages. They were not written for an adult crowd, an adult liberal crowd, an adult liberal social justice warrior crowd, an adult liberal social justice warrior gay activist crowd. No, they were written for all ages. They were not political for the most part. As political as comics was things like the analogy of the X-Men for all people who are, oppressed in as far as like racism and stuff like that. That's about as far as it went. You didn't have to. I mean, now it's just like,
Well, here's my problem. It's not just that they're writing it for those crowds. It's that they're taking up the mantle and they're trying to prove a point. And I think Bentis, that wonderful specimen of a human being, that basically better than us God among men, when he was talking about this and people who might not like it, this is what he had to say. And this is from Polygon. Oh, after I just played that. Bendis said that unfortunately there were racist individuals who had a problem with Iron Man being a black woman. It's important to him, he added, to be able to tell different stories from different perspectives, and the creation of Williams felt entirely organic. He went on to talk about how if you don't like this, that you're somehow racist. You cannot like the character. You cannot like the character and not be a racist. That's what gets me about this.
Well, you're a racist if you didn't vote for Obama, or you're a sexist if you don't like the new Ghostbusters. It's the standard attack from the hardcore believer in something, is that somehow if you disagree with what we're doing with this particular thing, it means you're against something that's just an element of that character, which is stupid. I mean, it's just plain stupid. You're no more racist for disagreeing with Obama on politics than you're a racist for disagreeing with Herman Cain on politics. And for this, I mean, the fact that she's a black girl to me is irrelevant. If they're going to have Tony Stark now be a benefactor of Iron Man, and that's the evolution of the character, fine. But if you're going to have a female, it shouldn't be called Iron Man, number one. If anything, you should call it Iron Woman, or, I don't know, Ironette, whatever you want to call it.
Ironette.
But I just say, you know what I'm saying? It's like, the new Batman's going to be a chick. Well, wouldn't that be Batwoman? No, that's a completely... Well, what about Batgirl? No, that's taken too.
I stand
but the new
corrected.
Batman's going to be a chick.
I stand corrected. After Michael said that, you are a racist if you disagree about it being a woman.
Oh.
That's...
Racist and sexist.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to...
Well, no, but the thing is that that just goes to prove what I'm saying is that they're more concerned with making some kind of political social justice point than they are about writing good stories, which is why the comic book industry has tanked.
That is,
Mike,
I agree.
Yeah, I mean that's a mic drop moment right there. I'm sorry, but if they think that they're all so full of themselves, they're busy smelling their own farts while they're enjoying how wonderful they are.
Thanks.
And without stopping to think about the fact that they're not bothering to actually write good stories, they're just trying to shove some political agenda in a bottle and put the Iron Man name on it. And like I said, it's not, this character, she may be a great breakout character that turns out to be awesome in the next 20 years. At the same time, it's like when other people, some people were cheering about the idea that X-23 is going to be in the next X-Men film. I just groaned. I am so done with this crap. And so, do you even know who X-23 is, Tim?
That's the female Wolverine.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a hint of that in the stinger at the end of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't you, and again, I don't blame Marvel Studios for this because the X-Men franchise, of course, is run by Fox. But why they could take a lesson from Marvel Studios. I mean, they put Jessica Jones on the air, which is a ballsy pro-woman show.
That's a great show.
Yeah, and it does it without bastardizing some existing character, and puts her into the universe seamlessly. So that, I mean, she, even though, in the old days of Luke Cage and Daredevil, there was no Jessica Jones, the way that they integrated it together works great. And I'm fine with that. And I would be fine. And if this girl that's going to be Tony Stark's protege is awesome, great. But why does she have to now be Iron Man? That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. Tim, you've been kind of quiet on this. What do you think?
My opinion on this is the same as it's been with any of the others that have come up in the past. If you want a black character, an Asian character, a Muslim character, a Mexican character, a gay character, whatever character, come up with an awesome idea, and the public will thrive, will flock to it.
Mm-hmm.
But to take established characters and change them into something else is stupid. The only reason, in my opinion, that they're doing that with the Iron Man thing is because the Iron Man name is out there. Because of the films and stuff, it's like, oh, Iron Man. Now you can, get the news covers that they've got with the story today and everything. And it's like, why not come up with other characters that are completely unique unto themselves? I mean, it's not like they don't exist. The ones that are not offshoots of male counterparts, Elektra, Black Orchid, Storm, Vixen, Black Canary, Crimson Fox. It's not like they don't exist.
Right.
If Bendis is not talented enough to come up with original, unique, different characters, then he's a piss poor writer. I don't care if they want to sit there and say, well, Tony Stark has retired. Fine. Then let Rhodey do it. War Machine.
And that that happened in the 80s.
And that did happen in the 80s. And again, Rhodey's a black character who I don't really give a shit, but the whole point is that he was actually his bodyguard / backup or whatever. Right. And I had no problem with that. But when you try and take a female character and shoehorn them into what's consistently been a male character, it's just ridiculous. It's like the people who are calling out for a female James Bond or a female Doctor Who, or it's just like one thing after another where it's like, can we not have any male icons anymore? And if you want to have strong female characters, God, I love strong female characters. I've gone over this before. I love Buffy. I love the Buffy the Vampire Slayer show. I love The Bride and the Kill Bill films. There's no reason why you cannot have strong female leads, strong female heroines. But stop trying to take away what's been around and established for forever. And it's not a male, getting their panties in a bunch or anything like that. It's just, it gets to a certain point. If I said to you, hey, I've got a great idea, Wonder Woman is now going to be Wonder Man. Now, yes, there is a Wonder Man character with Marvel, but I'm just using it as an example. And you took the basic Stars and Stripes thing and Wonder Woman died, and so now Steve Trevor's taking up the mantle of Wonder Man. Everybody would have a dump.
You find out there's another island that's all men that doesn't allow women.
Yeah, everybody would have a dump, and then, it would be like, oh my God, this is anti-woman. Well, it's a stupid idea. That's the whole point, is it is a stupid idea. And if, again, I have 30,000 comics, okay? And I have a bunch of series that star female characters. I love Zatanna. Now, granted, you could say she's kind of like an offshoot of Zatara, her father, but her father never had his own book. And he was a minor DC character. I have that. I have Madame Xanadu. I have Wonder Woman. I have Ms. Marvel. I have the Hellcat comic book. Only 5 issues of it from the 70s, but I have it. And I love female characters, but stop screwing with the male ones. Leave it alone. It'd be different if they weren't characters that had a 50 or 60 year history.
Right. Well, and I was going to say that, me, my 2 favorite comic books when I was a kid were the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four was obviously my all-time favorite. And Sue Storm, she's a great character. In the comic books, she's not just, oh, look, it's the blonde girl. She is actually the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four. She is, probably one of the most intelligent women in the Marvel Universe. And she also has to deal with, not just the family issues of the superhero team, but having the kids and there are issues with that. They had a really touching up issue back in the early 80s when she had a miscarriage. And she went through a hell of a time after that, but she became stronger for it and all this. She's an interesting character, not just, oh, look, let's put a woman out there. And on the X-Men side of it, the Phoenix Saga, considered one of the greatest stories in comics, and of course centered around the most powerful woman in the universe. And one of my favorite characters from the X-Men all along has always been Storm, because she always had this really interesting balance of the fact that she seemed so serene and everything, but it was because her power was so devastatingly powerful that she had to maintain control at all times. And and then she unfortunately was completely butchered and ruined and given a mohawk and then played by Halle Berry. But these characters are there. It's not like, oh, Marvel doesn't have a black female character to work with. Well, it's, if you just want to do it for the sake of quota, I'm sorry, but the characters are already existing.
Well, there was a good point that I just thought of that was kind of brought up in the chat, but I think is interesting. And what if they did something, if it's going to be something akin to the Batman Beyond series? Have you guys seen Batman Beyond?
Hated it.
Okay. Well,
hated it.
Y'all are crazy.
Y'all are crazy.
I never saw it. I can't comment.
Well, basically what it is Batman was too old to do what he does, so he got a young protege that he taught to do everything for him. And it just went from there. So basically it was a younger Batman with Batman as the mentor.
But you see, the thing is, that's all fine and dandy if I understand that could be what they're doing or whatever. But then if Tony Stark is now too old for this shit, where he's got to retire 2 weeks away from retirement, then does that mean that we're going to see the retirement of all the original Marvel characters that are that are human? Because shouldn't they all be too old now?
I would, well, first off, it doesn't always follow a solid timeline between all of the series, but
Well,
I would say that if
I'm
this
just
is
saying,
successful, I'd say if this is successful, yeah, you're going to see that.
I don't think Tony is from what I've read, he's not stepping down because he's too old. It's because of the events of Civil War II.
Right.
But how do they have a second Civil War? What the hell? It's like, you know,
I
what,
don't
guys,
know. I didn't.
How the hell does
Civil
that
War II. This time they still don't get along.
Yeah.
This time someone might actually get hurt and it stick.
Right. So yeah. But yeah, I'm done with this. I think it's
this
a
is
stupid
pivotal.
move.
This is pivotal. It's going to change everything.
Stupid. Well, no, it's
I mean-
not, and that's the thing. It's going to have. You know what the relevance of? I mean, the funny thing is, we've talked about this now for 15 minutes or so, and I think that the overall impact to us is going to be less than the impact that we have from whether or not Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is awesome. Because, quite frankly, nobody gives a crap about the comics anymore.
I do have to say, I think it's really appropriate for our show that Renee said, "What are we complaining about today?"
Yeah.
I don't see this. This is one of the rare times that I don't think we're complaining. That's the thing. I think I'm actually enjoying this show. We're not complaining about stuff. We're just
No,
having
we're complaining. You're just
having about
enjoying
stuff.
it more because you're in on it a little.
a little. He says a little. No, it's not. It's not that. I mean, I'm part of the other shows. I don't know. It's complaining. I think it'll be interesting. I think they're sexualizing a 15-year-old, so that needs to stop. But beyond that, I'd be interested to see where they go with it. I think that'll be a fun
Well,
filled
then
adventure.
you can start reading Invincible Iron Man. And there's a great comic book store on Broad
Oh,
Street.
hell no. No, I'm not
I'll
going to
introduce
support
you.
comic books. Not with Bendis. As long as
Well, if you're
Bendis
not
is
going to
still
support the business, then quit saying it's good. It's an interesting idea. Well, I'm looking forward to
Well,
seeing
I mean,
what happens.
I mean,
You're not going to see what happens.
I think it would be interesting if Bendis wasn't an idiot and thought that anyone who doesn't like stuff is obviously a racist. So
Well,
Sure.
that's just the mentality.
it's just the mentality of the left.
It really is. So, Tim and I have been
Yeah.
taking a journey through time over the last few weeks, and we're getting to the 90s now. And the 90s, that's when really modern visual effects really began to, mature to the point where you could create, the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park and stuff like that. You could make the 90s really became the era where you could make anything look real. It's also the dawn of the modern superhero film, the dawn of the modern epic. There's a lot of things in the 90s that just basically showed a polish to filmmaking that we have not seen in decades before. And with that, there's a lot of good movies that came out of the 90s. And let me ask you, did you have a tough time with your list?
I mean, cutting it down?
Yes.
Yes.
I absolutely had.
Not as much as the 80s list, but yeah.
Really? I actually had a harder time with the 90s because there's some cheese from the 90s that I really like too. And so, I don't know if you have a list of honorable mentions, but here's mine for the 90s good stuff. The 12 Monkeys, Beavis and Butthead Do America, The Usual Suspects, Mars Attacks, From Dusk Till Dawn, The Rock, Independence Day, Amistad, Event Horizon, Gattaca, Contact, Men in Black, Dark City, Fallen, The Truman Show, Saving Private Ryan, The Sixth Sense, Galaxy Quest, which, by the way, is the best parody film ever, South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut, The Emperor's New Groove, Unbreakable, Bless the Child, The Patriot, Primal Fear, Pitch Black, and let's see, make sure that's not on my actual list. No. Rob Roy, Braveheart, The Doors, Silence of the Lambs, Sleeping with the Enemy, Flight of the Intruder, and Apollo 13 are all movies that I had to scratch off my list, and I had a hell of a time doing that.
Jeepers.
Yes. But Tim, what's the fifth best movie to come out of the 90s?
Well, this is a rare example of a second sequel to a classic film that ended up, I think, really sneaking up on people and really, really surprising them. I know I was surprised. It takes an original film, makes a sequel from it, but it's almost a completely different genre, and it still works. And it's one of the best directed horror films I've seen of the last 30 years. It's Exorcist 3 Legion.
Yes.
I love this film. It has a great performance by George C. Scott, replacing Lee J. Cobb as the police officer from the first film. And he finds that there's a serial killer who's returned, and unfortunately he was actually executed, so he's trying to figure out how it's possible. And there's different people's fingerprints at each killing, and it just goes from there. It has a great cast. Brad Dourif is in it, Ed Flanders, and man, it also contains the single best jump scare I've ever encountered in my life. When it happened, and I saw it in the theater, the entire audience went, "Ah!" I mean, it scared the piss out of me. But again, I'm usually not somebody who likes jump scares, but this was one that was masterfully done because it was built. They build and build and build that scene, and if you've seen the movie, you know what scene I'm talking about. And I cannot get enough of that film. I think it's fantastic. Despite the tampering by the studio with the last 15 minutes, I still think it's a fantastic film.
Which is amazing if you consider that The Exorcist 2 was on your crap list last week.
Oh, Exorcist 2 is terrible.
Yeah. So I just think that's funny that they really redeemed the franchise. I did actually like Exorcist 3. I had never seen Exorcist 2, but I heard about what it was about, and I was like, "Oh no, thank you." You know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the interpretive dance.
Yeah, I told you.
But yeah, 1995 was a great year. That was the year my daughter was born. Oh my God, I'm old. But also the year that, when I was reading off some of my honorable mentions, that's when a lot of those honorable mentions came out, including my favorite film of all time, Braveheart, which I didn't include because I've talked about Braveheart ad nauseum in the past. However, this is a little gem from 1995 that I think Tim will be very impressed that I've actually heard of, let alone seen, because most people have not, but it is one of the most delightful comedies I've ever seen. And if you haven't seen it, it's an off-kilter film. It's just a fun little situational comedy, and it's one you need to see if you appreciate just a fun film. And that is The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill But Came Down a Mountain.
Come
on, you weren't expecting anything like that from me.
I know, actually, no.
If you have not seen this film, it's the title of the film is the story of the film. There's a small town who's very proud of the mountain that stands over their town, and a government official comes in and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm here to take a measurement of the geography here," and he determines that it's not actually a mountain, it's a hill, which gets the entire town incredibly incensed because this
And Skype goes down. Folks, I want to thank you so much for watching the show. We're going to be continuing to watch to do this right after I log back in. So hold on real quick while I do that. And it's just going to be fun. It's going to be a fun-filled adventure full of fun and frivolity. Why we do this live, I'm not sure. Oh, good. It's not taking them in. So I'm going to sing to you while we wait for this to get back on.
What the heck?
Fantastic.
That's what I was telling them. This is just a fantastic and fun-filled adventure for everybody. So continue on while I fix it in the background.
Okay. I don't know how my sentence got finished, but what I was just saying is that this is based on an actual town where this actually happened, where the English government was going to declare it a hill, and they stacked up a bunch of dirt on top of it to make it officially and legally a mountain. And I just love that fact. That a town got together to do something as stupid as add a few feet to the top of a hill so that it could be legally classified as a mountain. That would be like if someone flew out to Pluto to add some dirt to it so it would be a planet again. So, gotcha by surprise. But don't worry, you won't be surprised by any of the others on my list.
Yeah, how many Star Treks came out in the 90s? Yeah.
What's your number 4, Tim?
My number 4 is a film that causes visceral reactions from people. People either love it or hate it. There tends to be more people that hate it, and I think a lot of that comes with frustration of unresolved storylines more than the quality of the film itself. But this film, I saw this in the theater, and yeah, I think there was like 3 other people when I saw it, and it was a small theater. But it doesn't change the fact that this film was brilliant. It's terrifying. It's visceral. It really is one of the best of this director's career, in my opinion, and it's a rare example of a successful spin-off of a TV show. And if you haven't guessed it, I'm talking about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. By this point, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, that is a love it or hate it kind of.
Yeah, I think the majority of the people that hated it were like, well, it doesn't resolve the storyline because the show ended on a cliffhanger. It's actually more of a prequel. But I didn't really have any problem with that because I love being in that world, that David Lynch batshit crazy universe. And first of all, Cheryl Lee and Ray Wise, I am absolutely convinced should have at least been nominated for Best Actress and Best Actor. I think they give the performances of their careers here. And it's not just a horror film. It's a film that really delves into incest and molestation in a way that resonates with people who have experienced that themselves. And I know several people that have been, and they shared with me that this film absolutely impacted them in a way that made them feel like they weren't alone. And
that's coming to the Ironman comics, though, so it'll be good there.
Oh, great. But I really think that Lynch decided, you know what, screw what continuing a story, because what happened in the last episodes of Twin Peaks really wasn't his storyline at that point. That was the other writers that came in after him. And I fully endorse his decision to do it this way because it's just terrifying. It hits you emotionally. The very end of the film is absolutely an emotional gut punch, and it's uplifting as well at the end. And I just love it.
Haven't seen it.
Oh, you son of a!
I'm sorry. Well, I haven't, and it's not. To be honest with you, during the time that Twin Peaks was on the air, I was working nights, and so I never got to see the show. This was before the days of DVRs, folks. They hadn't been invented yet. So yeah, VHS was very unreliable. So yeah, I never had a chance to really get into the show. So obviously, seeing the movie would have been a waste.
And for those of you who want to see it continued next season, season 3 on Showtime of Twin Peaks, written and directed all 18 episodes by David Lynch. So there you go. That. Yes.
Well, my number 4, obviously, like I said, is it the 4th greatest movie truly to come out of the 90s? No, not at all. But I'm picking it because of its significance and its underrated significance. Why is it underrated significance? Because of another movie who almost made my bad list, and that would be the first X-Men film. Many people consider the beginning of the modern superhero genre film, and certainly the modern Marvel Comics adaptations, but that is a load of crap. It started a year earlier with a far better film, and that film is Blade from 1998.
I love Blade.
Yes. Now, for people that don't realize it, because there were a lot of people when they saw Blade, they had no idea this was a comic book, but
yeah.
But Blade is a Marvel Comics character who is a half man, half vampire who has a problem with vampires. And basically,
they killed his mother.
Yeah, wages a one-man war against the vampire nation. And Blade has shown up in many, many different forms in comics. He's guested in a lot. He appeared, of course, his first appearance was in Tomb of Dracula, which I actually have that one.
So do I.
I think you do too. Yeah, I was going to say. Blade is just he's a cool character. And by the way, again, this is a character that dates back to the 1970s, and having Wesley Snipes play Blade was actually a great pick. Looks just like the guy from the comics. Yes, he was black in the beginning of it. So, again, Marvel, you've done a great job with diversity. You don't have to force it on people.
I actually would love to see them bring back Snipes as Blade. I think he could still do it.
I do too. Snipes really did it well. Yeah, it would be tough to recast him, but I would like to see Marvel bring Blade into the MCU or even on the Netflix side of it. I think Blade would fit well on the Netflix side because he's a darker character. Blade was an R-rated film and not a bashful R-rated film. And I think that's one thing, again, when I rail about Fox and the X-Men franchise and stuff, they didn't make Blade R-rated for gratuitous reasons. They made it because that fit the story. Yeah. They wanted to tell a story about vampires killing people and the horrible things of vampires. You can't do that in a PG-13 film.
Well.
Yeah. And I actually, if you have not seen the original Blade, definitely see it. Blade 2, a lot of people consider superior. I actually like the first one better. Blade 3, a lot of people think is absolute dog crap.
It is.
I would say it's not nearly as good as the first two, but I wouldn't call it dog crap. There are some things about Blade 3 that I did enjoy.
I actually do prefer the second one with Del Toro directing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, I love Blade.
Sucks. I just kind of partial to the first one. I like the story in the first one. I liked Whistler better in the first one.
Yeah. I think that I think my biggest issue, and it's not a big deal, but my biggest issue with the first one is I wasn't a big fan of Steven Dorff as what's the character?
The
villain.
Yeah, the Deacon something.
Yeah, Deacon Frost. Yeah, because in the comics, Deacon Frost is an old man with a long white beard and everything, and it's like here's young Steven Dorff, dancing around.
You bore me. I just love that line.
But I do really like that film.
So yeah, this is truly the birth of the modern superhero flick as far as taking the source material seriously. And sure, they made some changes and adaptations to make it into a film, but they didn't ham it up, and they took the concept and they ran with it in a very serious tone.
Yes.
So, Tim.
Yeah.
What's your number 4?
Am I 3?
Or your number 3? Yeah. Your number 4 we already talked about.
My number 3 is another film that has divided people. And the difference this time is it seems to divide people along political lines. Not quite like, say, Fahrenheit 451 or Fahrenheit 9/11, rather, or anything like that. But I think what happened was I think a lot of people took this as this director's putting this out as fact. And he really, really wasn't. This was just as a what if. And I approached it from that perspective. And it is, in my opinion, one of the most masterful films, not just of the 90s, but of this director's career, who's made some pretty great films. And I'm talking about JFK, a film that it's 3 hours long, and I saw it in the theater 5 times. I absolutely loved it. This is one of my favorite Kevin Costner performances. It has an all-star cast of great actors, and the editing of this film, I believe it may have won best editing. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to go back and look, but I think it did. And the opening, I think it's like the first 10 minutes of this film, if you do not get tears in your eyes, I think there's something wrong with you. It's a film that I think to this day continues to divide people, and I think it's good in the respect that it causes conversation. And it's rare that there's a film that can be a quality film that makes people open up and talk about things. And did Oswald work alone? Probably. But this does raise interesting questions. Whether or not they're accurate or not isn't the point. The point is, it's one hell of an entertaining mystery, and I love it. It's one of the rare 3-hour films that for me moves like lightning.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my God!
And I'll be honest with you, it has nothing to do with Oliver Stone or politics. The reason that I have not seen JFK is at that particular time, I loathed Kevin Costner. Now, keep in mind, last week my number one on the bad list was Dances with Wolves. I loathed Kevin Costner. In fact, the first time I ever saw Kevin Costner in a film and I was like, oh, I like this, was Man of Steel. So...
Wow, you didn't like him in the Untouchables?
Actually, you know what? I don't think I've seen the Untouchables. Not a big gangster movie fan. There's only a couple of gangster movies that I've ever seen and enjoyed.
How about Field of Dreams?
No, never saw that one.
Oh my God!
I hate Kevin Costner.
Wow. Okay.
I know.
How the hell can you be a movie buff and not see Field of Dreams?
How the hell can you be a Batman fan and not having seen Batman vs. Superman?
I don't know. You answer yours, I'll answer mine.
Because I hate Kevin Costner.
Oh, well, I thought that it was a poor movie put together. But, maybe if my mom was named Martha.
Yeah, maybe if she was, maybe you would have gone to see it.
Oh, my God.
Well, my number 3 is, again, a film that kind of changed things kind of in the way the Blade really launched the modern superhero film, and particularly the Marvel films. This film truly changed the way that sci-fi was presented from that day forward, and in generally from a visual standpoint, and in a very good way. There's no hiding that this was going to be on my list, and that is 1999's The Matrix. Now, I am not a huge defender of the 2 Matrix sequels. In fact, I find them laughable in very many ways. But this film, I absolutely love. I like the fact, just that, of course, bullet time, which we take for granted now on shows like The Flash, was invented for this movie. And it wasn't, the funny thing about bullet time is that while there was CG to it, the real magic of bullet time was the fact that they built a 360-degree camera that shot you from every angle so that they could freeze it and rotate it in the way that they did in that film. Nowadays, what they do is they create CG body doubles for everything and create bullet time that way, and much more simple. But this was actually bullet time as a practical effect. And so, like, when you see Neo do that, bending over with the bullets going over him, nothing about Keanu Reeves in that film was CG. I mean, we can talk about the Matrix sequels. I'm sure we will next week. But the... nothing about Keanu Reeves in that was CG. That was practically shot. The only thing that was added was the bullets and stuff like that. So, yeah, if you haven't seen The Matrix, you're a freaking idiot, and you shouldn't be watching this show. And Lawrence
That's the way to
Fishburne-
get the viewers.
Yeah, and Lawrence Fishburne's last great role before eating another person.
The opinions of Michael about joining the show may not be that reflected of those of the Untitled Show.
What did that make any sense? Did that sentence make any sense?
Oh, wow.
The opinions of Michael on the Untitled Show do not.
The opinions of Michael about joining the Untitled Show are
Yeah,
not reflective of the Untitled Show.
What the hell are you talking about?
I want them to join whether they like Matrix or not.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, my.
Anyway, so Tim, did you like
Yes.
The Matrix?
I love The Matrix.
Okay.
I mean,
So
I
Ma-
prefer Dark City, but I do love
Well, yeah, and Dark City was, the only reason it's not on my list is because we've talked about it a lot before. Dark City, I do think, is a better film, but The Matrix pushed visual effects like no other film before or since.
Yes.
All right, so what is your numero dos?
Well, my number 2 is a film that really hit home for me, and to this day, it has a real personal spot in my heart because it spoke to me. Unlike a lot of films out there where I can appreciate for their aesthetic, but this one felt very personal for me, almost as if the main character was part of my psyche manifested as a character on the screen. And it won Best Picture and Best Actor, and rightfully so. It is that rare combination of comedy and drama that works on both fronts. And to this day, it's interesting because I've actually heard some people kind of like it's popular to slam this film now, which I just don't get. But the film is American Beauty, and I love this film. Everything about Kevin. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, I was about to say Kevin Pollak for some weird ass
I
reason.
thought you were going to say Kevin Costner.
No. Yeah, Kevin Spacey. Everything about his character in this and what he goes through, you feel it. You can relate to it. You can relate to what's happening with him. And if you're a younger person, you can relate to his daughter and the next door neighbor. And it is such a powerful film. It has its funny moments, but for me, the last 3 minutes of the film are some of the most powerful that I've ever seen in an American film. And it's Spacey narrating, and it is just it's a lot of people talk about how hard it is to sit through the first few minutes of Up. The final minutes of this have that same effect on me. It makes me cry like a baby every damn time, and I love it, and I hope that this film just lasts forever and transcends everything else, like Transformers or crap like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be remembered right up there with Transformers.
Yes.
I have seen American Beauty. I have to say it's a good film, but it didn't move me like it did you. Obviously, I mean, I didn't hate it, but I didn't fall in love with it like you obviously did. But hey, there is Kevin Spacey, the greatest Lex Luthor, unfortunately, in one of the crappiest Superman films.
That is true.
Yeah, it's really too bad they couldn't get him to be Lex Luthor in Man of Steel or in Batman v Superman. That would have been something.
Oh, I think he would have been so much better.
So my number 2 is, well, let me tell you, my favorite film of all time is Braveheart.
Yes.
And my number 2 is what I wish parts of Braveheart could have been, but the technology and the filmmaking skills just weren't quite there yet, at least not for Mel Gibson. But this film took the epic and took it to the next level, made the first true modern epic, in my opinion, as far as if you compare it to the movies of Cecil B. DeMille and those kind of things, and that is Gladiator. I absolutely love Gladiator. When he's in the arena and his back is to Caesar, and he turns around and takes his helmet off and says, I am Maximus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance in this life or in the next. And I was like,
Are you not entertained?
Yes. Russell Crowe at his absolute best. And I did not care about the fact that, yes, you could tell he was not exactly Roman. So, I didn't care. It was too good to care.
Oliver Reed didn't look Roman either.
Huh?
Oliver Reed didn't look Roman either.
But the funny thing is, why is it that in Hollywood films, whenever we're in Rome, everybody has an English accent? Will somebody please explain that to me? Shouldn't they be walking around? What's the matter with you? I just don't understand. Why is it that they're always?
Yeah, they should all sound like Chef Boyardee.
Yeah, I never got that. But absolutely, Gladiator is a 10 out of 10 film for its year. It's it kicked off the new century in such a great and brilliant way. I mean, this was a year 2000 film, and I would dare say probably the best film of the year 2000 for me. There's not much more to say other than this is what epic should be.
See, now I feel about this way you did about American Beauty. I liked it, but I was like, yeah.
Right. Well,
I don't know. I'll be honest with you. All the shots of the Coliseum were so horribly done CGI that really bugged the crap out of me. But I mean, I liked it. I just didn't love it.
Right. I get you. We'll have words later. So, what's your number one, Tim?
My number one is the best film of the 1990s, and it's the best film for a lot of reasons. One, because it's a wholly original story, an original idea, well executed, well written, well acted, well photographed.
Wait, let me guess.
Just a beautiful film.
I got to guess what it is. City Slickers 2, The Legend of Curly's Game.
No.
Okay, good.
This is a film that to this day I can watch, and no matter where I come in the film, I will always finish it. It was absolutely robbed of Best Picture, which I have bitched about before. And it is the finest film from the Coen brothers. It's Fargo. And the thing that's so great about Fargo is it creates a universe unto itself. And it is such a quirky, odd film it's so Coen brothers on every level. You have characters that can be constituted as comic relief who do horrible, violent things, and a fun score, a delightful lead performance from Frances McDormand, and I really think that William H. Macy was robbed of a Best Actor Oscar.
Agreed.
And nothing about this film copies anything else. It is an animal unto itself. I absolutely love and adore this film, and I always recommend it to people if they haven't seen it. It is not predictable. It does not ever go the direction you think it's going to go, and I adore this film.
Good pick. I mean, not my favorite.
Damn right it is.
Not my favorite film, but I know that you love this film, and I certainly think it's a great film. So I can't argue with that.
Damn right.
However, my number one is not going to shock anybody whatsoever, and in fact, Firefly is about to jump out of his seat in excitement because yes, it is Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country from 1991. The only reason it wasn't on my list last week was because it was 1991 instead of 1990 that it came out. Star Trek VI, I'll say this, is and I know Firefly thinks it's the best of Trek. I'm not quite ready to commit that. I have, as far as classic Trek, it's like that and Star Trek 2 are definitely my favorites. I don't know if I could pick one over the other because they're so different, which is interesting because they have such a similar style. They're both written and directed by Nicholas Meyer. They complement each other perfectly. Star Trek 2 is about Kirk reaching middle age. It's his 50th birthday. Star Trek 6 is about his retirement. But the thing that got me, and I'll tell you, when I saw it in theaters, it got me really well, was the fact that, I mean, we know that science fiction at its finest is usually an analogy for something that we're dealing with in modern day. And with Star Trek 6, sure, everybody talks about the parallels with the Berlin Wall coming down, but that wasn't it. And the funny thing is, a lot of people didn't get it and stuff. It is prejudice, bigotry, and the fact that Kirk was bigoted and prejudiced against Klingons, to which, at this point, when this film came out, well, of course, since 1966, 50 years now today, we have been, bigoted against Klingons. Klingons are evil. They're slimy. They want nothing but violence. They're horrible, horrible people, right? But then this movie humanizes them in a way that I didn't think was even possible. Because I know we'd had Next Generation with Worf and stuff, but Worf to me was a joke. I'm sorry, Next Generation, I'm not going to even go there. But, the fact that they were able to take Kirk's understandable, justifiable, legitimate hatred of Klingons and turn that into this prejudice and horrible negative thing, and I never even thought about it. And it was great the way Nicholas Meyer used the death of David from Star Trek 3. That Kirk's whole life has been fighting the Klingons, and then all of a sudden he's got to think of the Klingons as his friend. He can't do that. They're evil. They're animals, as he says in the film. And so that to me just hit hard. I love that about it was an analogy I didn't see coming, and brilliantly done, because Klingons in and of themselves have become a hated part of pop culture. So take that, Tim.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, are you telling me you didn't like Star Trek 6? Or did you not?
It was okay. I'm not a Trekkie, so... Yeah.
Also known as not having a soul.
Okay. I'm a Trekkie, and I thought it was okay. Just a little slow paced, but it's fine.
A little slow paced. You like Next Generation? When you go away.
I like Deep Space Nine. First off, so if I'm going to be damned, sir, let me be damned for who I am.
Which is a quote of Captain Picard, by the way.
I know, from the Next Gen.
Anyway.
Oh,
so at this point, I know we were in between the good and the bad, and so I know this is breaking format slightly, and I apologize, James, but I have to mention one particular movie that I couldn't. The reason I'm mentioning it right now is because I couldn't decide whether to put it on my good or my bad list, and that is the film. That is the film Jungle Fever. And
what?
I'll tell you, have you seen it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw it was in the theater when I was working there.
Okay, so now on the one hand, Jungle Fever is actually a very good film overall. It's got, Spike Lee is not a bad filmmaker at all. And the story is compelling, the characters are well done, blah, 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 blah. On the other side of that, after I got out of seeing Jungle Fever, everywhere me and my wife went, somebody would sing that damn song.
Oh, jeez.
And it just became so annoying that I began to absolutely loathe that film. so it has a special place in my heart in the 90s as being a good film that ruined itself because of a great song in that good film. So, but what we're here to talk about, of course, is that while the 90s did give us a lot of really great films, it also gave us a lot of absolute crap. Now, a short, brief, abbreviated list of some of that crap includes films like, and I know you're going to disagree with me on at least a couple of these, but not on others. But it includes Starship Troopers, the remake of Psycho, Godzilla, Lost in Space, Eyes Wide Shut, Wild Wild West, Big Mama's House, American Psycho, Final Destination, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, Battlefield Earth, The English Patient, X-Men, The Cell, Judge Dredd, Waterworld, Dungeons and Dragons, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I am so glad that you put the remake of Psycho on there. Yeah. I almost did, but it got edged out.
Oh, I forgot to mention Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest, FX, American Ninja 4, Titanic, and Wing Commander also all came out of the 1990s. So, yeah, there is no shortage of absolute, utter crap to come out of the 90s. However, there's 5 that have got to stand out, right, Tim?
Oh, yes.
And what's your...
my, yes.
What's your number 5?
My number 5 was the final... okay... When you hear there's an animal, if you've ever been out in the woods and an animal has been hit by a car, on the side of the road, and it's not quite dead yet, and you hear its death throes and its groans and everything. That's about pretty much what this did for this franchise. Mm-hmm. It absolutely sunk it, and where it laid there for I forget how many years before they revived it with a decent revival film. But Halloween: The Curse of Michael Myers is dismal, and it was written by a guy that graduated from the Santa Rosa JC. It was directed by him, I should say, and Joe Chappelle. First of all, Donald Pleasance, who by this point in time in the series was the only reason to watch any of them. He's barely in it because he is so feeble at this point, and he died actually before this was released.
He died because he saw it.
I think so. It bastardizes the story. Which, don't get me wrong, the series had been going downhill anyway. But it really takes in a whole different direction where now all of a sudden Michael Myers is actually a being that's been reanimated by a thing called the Cult of the Thorn.
Yes.
And that's how they control him. And oh God, this film is such a mess. It's so darkly photographed that half the time you can't tell what's happening. They kill off the little girl who was the heroine of 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly she's been kidnapped and raped and impregnated, and then Michael just unceremoniously kills her on a thresher or some shit. So, that's just as big an impact like for me as Alien 3 at the beginning of that friggin' thing where they kill off everybody but Ripley again. And it's such a cynical, disheartening film. And they actually changed the ending. They reshot the ending, which is actually now available on the DVD, I think, where you can see it, and you can see it on YouTube. And honestly, both endings suck. The only thing that's notable about this is that it's a very early appearance by Paul Rudd. But other than that, this film is an absolute zero. And that coming from someone who's a huge fan of Halloween and Donald Pleasance, right. it says something that I hate this film this much.
Well, the one thing I'll say about this film, if you want to argue anything positive about this film, is that it did inspire them to retcon it and the other sequels out when they did H2O.
Yeah, it basically H2O only takes 1 and 2 as canon.
Yeah, so I'm fine with that. So if you want to see Halloween, go 1, 2, H2O, and stop. Do not go beyond H2O.
And remember, Halloween 3 is the best one.
And Tim will not be back next week for the Untitled show. Well, my number 5 is... Oh, it's a bad movie. It's a horrifically bad. It's a movie that very few people bothered to see because it's so bad. How bad is it? Oh, I'm going to describe to you how bad it is in just a moment. But I actually saw it because at the time it was being filmed in the city that I lived in at the time, and I literally ran into one of the stars of the film as the film was being produced, and so it actually had me kind of looking forward to seeing it. And so, but how bad could a movie possibly be, Tim?
Yes.
How bad can a movie be?
Well, it can be bad enough where it makes me get up and leave, and there's only been one film that's done that.
Right, but imagine this. Now, I don't know if you've actually seen this film. I honestly don't, but because you haven't gone off on it, so I assume you haven't seen it. But here's how bad this film sinks. This is actually in the film. Willem Dafoe having sex
Yes.
with Madonna in broken glass.
Yes, I know.
Okay, that is in this film. I'm talking about the Willem Dafoe Madonna masterpiece, Body of Evidence.
Oh, God, terrible.
A horrible attempt at doing some kind of pseudo film noir in Portland, Oregon. The one thing I'll say for me, because I lived in Portland, Oregon for a very long time, I knew that city very, very well because I actually lived in downtown Portland. At the point when this film came out, I had been living in downtown Portland for about 6 years, and I worked nights. I worked in an office building on one end of downtown Portland. I live in an apartment on the other side, so I just walked back and forth every day because it was like 12 blocks up, 12 blocks over. And I didn't, I'd heard news that they were filming this thing, and I didn't really care. But I was walking home from work, and this was at like 3 a.m. because, I was working a swing shift at the time. And I walked at a pretty brisk pace because there's nobody around. I'm just like, you kind of get a workout, and if you do it quickly, then you get home earlier and you can relax, right? So I'm walking this brisk pace, and I'm going by the city courthouse. Now, what I didn't know was that they were filming a scene at the city courthouse that day. And so as I'm rounding the corner of the city courthouse, I noticed there's a couple of trailers on the side of the road. I'm like, oh, what are those for? Oh, maybe they're doing something. Oh, well. Well, what I didn't, they were the Stars trailers, or Willem Dafoe's, Madonna's, etc. Well, Madonna was just leaving the set where they were shooting and walking back to her trailer. As I was rounding the corner, I slammed into her, and so I literally ran into Madonna. Wow. And yeah, so I was actually kind of looking after my little encounter with Madonna, and she was, nice, even though I kind of knocked on her butt, but she was actually nice about it and didn't have to be executed or anything. But we talked for a minute, and then she went on to do her thing, and I went home. And the thing is that the movie sucks so bad.
Oh, it's terrible. It's one of the few films that made sex disgusting and boring.
Yeah. Like I said, Willem Dafoe and Madonna having sex in broken glass. Do I need to describe anything else about how bad this movie is? Now, the fun thing about the movie, though, is if you're a Portlander, you can enjoy the fact that she lives in a restaurant, because the house that she has in the movie is actually a well-known restaurant in the city. They like walk around the corner, and then they're like instantly on the other side of town. It's just horribly done, as far as they obviously didn't care about the landscape of Portland, and it was funny.
So when you were living there, was Kyle MacLachlan mayor?
On
Portlandia?
Oh, yeah. Actually, when I left Portland, Sam Adams was mayor, and he is the one that plays the mayor's assistant on Portlandia.
All right.
So, yeah, and yes, he was sitting mayor when he was playing the mayor's assistant on Portlandia.
That's funny.
Yeah. Anyway, Tim.
Yes, sir.
Now that we've gotten that fart box out of the way, what is your number 4?
Well, my number 4 film is a film that, okay, at the time, I'm pretty sure that the reason my feelings for this film are what they are is because it was a reflection on what had happened to me very recently. So to this day, it still burns and pisses me off.
The film.
So let me give you an idea of who's in this. Keith David, Andy Dick, Renee Zellweger, Steve Zahn, Joe Don Baker, Swoozie Kurtz, Janine Garofalo. So at this point, you're thinking, okay, that sounds like an interesting cast. But I left out
horrible to me, actually.
I left out the three main characters because the whole thing gets me so angry. But I will tell you, the name of the film is Reality Bites. And if you've seen this film, you've got a love triangle between Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, and Ben Stiller. And throughout the entire film, Ethan Hawke's character is a douchebag. He is a piece of garbage. Ben Stiller is a nice guy who is in love with Winona Ryder, and all he wants to do is help her with her career and be a general nice guy. And what happens at the end of the show? She picks the dirtbag. And that was enough to remind me of what was going on with my marriage at the time. And it kind of really pissed me off. And to this day, I still get angry when I think about it. Because the way this film was structured, not just because of the way it reflected my own life, but it makes no logical sense. Because there's maybe one scene near the end where Ethan Hawke does something nice. And the rest of the time, he is a piece of shit. He treats her so poorly. To me, it comes off almost like an abusive relationship. And yet, we're supposed to rejoice because he's the hunky slacker guy that she ends up choosing. And my message to the writers and the filmmakers of this film, fuck you. Michael?
I haven't seen it, actually, because when I saw the poster and the trailers for it did not appeal to me at all. So, take that. However, I do have a number 4 of my own, and I know it pisses James off, but it's actually a tie. It was almost a 3-way tie. And so first...
3-way?
Yeah, I'll tell you the first. So the movie that was eliminated from the 3-way tie was The Lion King. I absolutely despise The Lion King because it's the movie of a little ass who learns that, oh, it's okay to be an ass, and then he comes back and everything's okay. But these two other films, you'll see why it was a 3-way tie, but these two other films have much more in common than Lion King was kind of the oddball film of the 3, so I decided to eliminate Lion King. And that 2-way tie is now Beauty and the Beast and The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Are you saying the Disney Beauty and the Beast?
Yes.
Are you shitting me?
No.
Oh my God!
Now I know you're a Disney fan, and
I didn't like The Hunchback.
Yeah. Now,
come on.
Well, here's the thing. Overall, did I hate Beauty and the Beast? No, I did hate Hunchback, but I didn't hate Beauty and the Beast like I hated Hunchback. Or actually, I even would say that I hated Lion King much more than I hated Beauty and the Beast. Of the 3 films, Beauty and the Beast was by far the least offensive. However, the thing that Beauty and the Beast and The Hunchback have in common is both of these films, these wonderful children's films by Disney, feature songs of the villains fantasizing about capturing and basically raping the main character. And you know that's true in both of these films. I
will admit that Hunchback is very dark for a Disney film.
Right. But Gaston does it in Beauty and the Beast. He sings a song about how he wants to capture her and basically tie her up and have his way with her. And I'm like, no, that is not an appropriate song for a child. I mean, I understand we talk about how we hide too much from our kids, but songs about basically, Gaston wanting to kidnap and rape a girl, and in the other one, I can't remember the priest's name, but I mean, and it's a priest singing a song about how tempting she is, and that it's like hell.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a dark story. If you go back and see any of the classic versions, like with Charles Laughton, it is a very dark story. I mean, the character of the cardinal is he's an evil character.
Oh, by the way, Tracy, I do have to say that, of course, it would not be a Untitled show about nerdy stuff if I didn't, hurt your feelings about some movie in some way. So there is that. I had to put something in there that I knew you would get upset about. So, enough said. I'm not pro singing about, rape. Yeah. So, Tim, what's your number 3?
My number 3 might piss some people off because I know a lot of people who think it's great. I've never understood it. It's a comedy. A matter of fact, the last 3 on my list here are all comedies. I saw this in the theater. I went in with high hopes because I love the director.
The last 3 on my list are all unintentional comedies.
And I sat there absolutely stone-faced thinking, wow, maybe it's time for this guy to retire because it is horribly unfunny. It's Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Oh, yes, that was a runner-up on mine.
It is a terrible film.
Y'all are crazy.
It is an absolutely terrible film.
Really
to sit there and think that this is the same guy that brought us Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, even High Anxiety. This film sucks balls. It's a huge cast of comedy greats, and I think there was one laugh that I had in it, and it was at the very, very end, and that was it.
I'll tell you there were two moments that I snickered in Men in Tights. One was Patrick Stewart.
That was the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. The other though was and I know I should remember this guy's name. He was in Princess Bride, but the Robin Hood.
Gary Elwes.
Thank you. Who my favorite line in the whole film that he did say was that unlike some Robin Hoods, I can speak with an English accent. I did like that because it was a direct slight at Kevin Costner. And by the way, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was also a runner-up for being on this list. So
yeah, with Costner's disappearing accent.
Yeah. I actually almost did because I really had a tough time with my list this time, but I wanted to do a 2-way tie of Men in Tights and Prince of Thieves because
the same
in their own ways are both equally offensive.
And like I said, I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan, and this film was absolutely painful.
I am not.
And no, it does not have so many quotable moments. It is dog shit.
Yeah. I have to say I'm not a Mel Brooks fan. I mean,
I am.
I know you are. Mel Brooks to me it just doesn't. I don't know. His style generally doesn't work for me, but I love Young Frankenstein. I think
you don't like Blazing Saddles?
No, I don't actually. I didn't.
Really?
No, I'm not a fan of Blazing Saddles.
Oh my god!
But I absolutely adored Young Frankenstein, and I really liked High Anxiety. I think those are his 2 best films by far. I found Spaceballs to be offensive.
Spaceballs at least made me laugh in a couple of moments, especially the aliens part at the end.
Oh, the hello, my baby.
Yes, honestly, I almost peed my pants at that point because I just seen that cartoon, ironically, the day before.
Yeah, poor Deck Crash is going nuts with us hating on his favorite films.
Oh, Renee's mad at me now.
Yeah, but even so, this is Mel Brooks at his lowest. I mean, this really is. It was just cheap gags. There was no creativity in this film. And there was a couple of good one-liners, but that's about it.
It's honestly, it's on the same level as Dracula Dead and Loving It. It's just terrible.
I have to say, the 90s, when it came to we had Airplane, and then we had Hot Shots and Top Secret, which were funny. And then in the 90s, we got these attempts at recapturing that hardcore slapstick comedy. Then every one of them failed. Whether it be the Naked Gun films, also runners up on my list. The Naked Gun sequels were just horrible. This film, Hot Shots Part 2, a lot of these films were trying to recapture that airplane style of comedy and just failed. Speaking of failures, Deck Crash is still upset. My number 3. Now, remember I said all 3 of my top 3 are unintentional comedies. These are all films that were supposed to not be necessarily laughable, but they are so bad that they can actually provide a certain amount of entertainment just to watch the bad stuff. This one absolutely killed a franchise and almost an entire segment of film for at least a few years, and almost destroyed this character forever. And that is Joel Schumacher's masterpiece, Batman Forever, featuring George Clooney as Batman.
That's Batman and Robin.
Or no, I'm sorry. This one's Val Kilmer. I apologize. Yes.
Yeah.
I was actually, the reason I picked Batman Forever as opposed to Batman and Robin was because this is the one that really turned Batman into a joke. And yeah, well, I mean, yeah. What can you say? Have you seen? It's just, I would much rather watch Iron Man be a 15-year-old black girl than to watch Joel Schumacher direct a Batman film again. So
okay,
yeah.
So what did you think of Jim Carrey as the Riddler?
Overdone. Riddler to me, and granted, now I am not as big a DC fan as you, but Riddler never came across to me as just being the Joker in a Riddler costume. But that's what it felt like in this movie, was that he was trying to be the Joker. The Riddler to me seemed a little more cerebral than Jim Carrey's character. In fact,
I don't know. I didn't mind it.
Right. The thing is, when I heard he was cast, I didn't object.
I would say that Tommy Lee Jones overdoes Two-Face.
Oh, he's horrible as Two-Face.
I mean, he looks great. He looks absolutely letter perfect, but he's just so over the top in it.
Yeah, he's absolutely Tommy Lee Jones should be embarrassed, and should just hang his head down in shame.
Well, you know the whole story about that, don't you, with him and Jim Carrey?
No, I don't.
Well, he was supposedly that Tommy Lee Jones was such an asshole, and he just made life miserable for Carrey because he thought Jim Carrey was beneath him. And he was just a condescending douche throughout the whole shooting. So I guess Schumacher loved working with Carrey, but not with Tommy Lee Jones.
Well, I will say this, that Tommy Lee Jones redeemed himself by playing the best drill sergeant of all time in Captain America, the First Avenger. So I did love his character in that. He's still skinny. All right, Tim, what is your numero 2?
My number 2. Let's talk about this for a second. Okay, again, I'm going to read you the cast, and you tell me if this sounds like this could be good stuff. Danny Aiello, Andy McDowell, James Coburn, Sandra Bernhard, Richard E. Grant, David Caruso, Steve Martin, Frank Stallone, and William Conrad. How does that sound to you?
You lost me at Frank Stallone.
Okay, take him out.
And then I can see you might have something.
Well, it does sound, it's like, at least if nothing else, it's eclectic and interesting sounding. You would be dead wrong, because this film is the egomaniacal vanity project from Bruce Willis, Hudson Hawk, which is horrible. He is a cat burglar and safecracker who breaks out of or gets out of prison and decides that his whole thing that he's going to do to celebrate is just have a cappuccino, Well, throughout the entire film, he is kept from having that cappuccino until, spoiler alert, he finally gets it at the end. And here's the thing. Him and his partner, Danny Aiello, whenever they commit crimes, they sing duets together to time their robberies. So they sing great standards, like Bing Crosby or Frank Sinatra stuff. And here we get this. Okay. So Sandra Bernhard and Richard E. Grant want to take over the world. They lead this thing called the Mayflower Industries Corporation. They want to take over the world by recreating this machine supposedly invented by Leonardo da Vinci that converts lead into gold. Okay, here's your first problem. First of all, if it can indeed turn lead into gold, the more gold you create, the more the value of gold goes down.
True.
It does not make you more wealthy. So the fact that they think that this is going to destroy the world's economy so they'll be in charge is asinine. So like right out of the gate, it's flawed. It is, you can see with this film that they wanted it to be this rollicking, laugh-a-minute fun time, so like, akin to something like an Ocean's 11 kind of feel, but it is absolutely dismal. It is a waste of James Coburn, who I loved, and you just want to punch Bruce Willis in his smug face every time he pulls out his harmonica. It is just, oh my God, just terrible.
Well,
it deserves its reputation. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I have to say, I saw the trailers for this film and had no interest, so I never saw it. I have not seen this film, and I don't regret that at all. However, I have to tell you my number 2, and it's painful for me to even discuss these films. There's 2 of them. It's another 2-way tie. I couldn't separate these films, even though one is clearly worse than the other. They both go hand in hand as being 2 of the most loathed films by me personally in the course of my 48 years on this planet. I truly, truly hate these 2 films on a personal, deep level. And like I said, it's painful for me to even discuss them. I'm talking about Star Trek Insurrection from 1998 and the worst of Star Trek Generations from 1994.
How dare you, sir?
Now,
as a diehard Star Trek fan, I feel no.
Star Trek Generations takes the iconic, one of the most iconic characters of all of cinema and television, Captain James T. Kirk, and basically makes him the punchline of a joke. They take and one of the things I liked about, Star Trek 6 was my number 1 on my good list. And one of the things about Star Trek 6 was Kirk dealing with being old, and being okay with that and accepting the world for the changes that are coming and stuff. Now, one thing that Nicholas Meyer did very well in the 2 Star Trek films that he directed is that he knew William Shatner was no longer the dashing young actor that was playing Captain Kirk in the 60s. And so
politics is an exceedingly complicated.
The brilliant tactician, the wise person, the man of experience. And so what did they do when they finally get to have Captain Jean-Luc Picard and Captain James T. Kirk meet? Well, Jean-Luc Picard gets his ass beaten by one of the few actors in Hollywood that look like that Patrick Stewart should actually be able to hand his ass to him. I mean, I'm sorry, Roddy, but you are not exactly an imposing presence.
I assume you mean Malcolm McDowell.
Or I'm sorry, Malcolm.
Not Roddy McDowell.
Roddy McDowell. Yeah. Malcolm.
Peter Vincent, Vampire Killer.
That would have been better. So yeah, Malcolm McDowell, not exactly an imposing force, but basically, for some reason, gets into a fist fight with Captain Picard, and he wins, of course. Then, so Captain Picard's solution is to get Captain Kirk to help him beat the shit. So you get the climax of this film is literally 3 doddering old men fighting.
Yes.
And then Kirk dies. And
Kirk dies with the worst last words ever.
Oh my.
Oh my.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the funny thing is, I gotta say, this is I'm borrowing this. There's a brilliant commentator on the internet named SF Debris, and he made a joke about this, but I honestly think it may be accurate. Is that somebody told the producers of this film that, you know, Captain Kirk had to die on the bridge, so he died on a bridge. I mean, that's the
Lord.
You know, it was so bad. You know, the plot holes in this film are beyond belief, especially, I mean, if you consider that when you know, Picard goes into the Nexus, which is this time traveling ribbon of goodness, he finds out while he's there that he can leave the Nexus and go anywhere and any place he wants and any time that he wants. The Nexus exists outside of common space-time, so he can literally go to any time, any place, anywhere. And so his choice now keep in, and also the main villain was a refugee that was in the holds of the Enterprise earlier in the film, and Picard knew this. So Picard's choice was not to go back to that time and call the security guys and put him under arrest and then explain that he had traveled through time. No. His choice was to go 5 minutes into the past just before the bad guy wins everything, except this time he's going to have another fat old guy with him. That was his plan.
Yeah.
Star Trek Generations, I swear, when I saw it in theaters, I was just waiting the entire time for something in this movie to be good and entertaining. Everything about it was an insult. I would rather watch Star Trek 5 than Star Trek Generations, and Star Trek 5 is a complete train wreck.
You didn't want Data singing Gilbert and Sullivan?
Yeah, the whole Data motion chip, which, you know, of course, then later in the next few ones, they just figured, okay, well, we'll retcon that whole emotion chip fuse thing out because everybody hated Data so much. He was the Jar Jar Binks of that movie. But Data was, so annoying in Generations that by the time Insurrection, they go, oh, where's his emotion chip? Oh, he didn't take it with him. Even though in Generations they said it was fused to his hardware and could never be removed, you know. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? The next generation of Star Trek movies, they were bad. They were so bad. But I mean, and these were the 2 worst by far. So Tim.
Yes.
What's the worst piece of slimy crap to ooze its way out of the 90s?
Well, those are actually apt words, Michael, for this piece of shit. I saw this thing. I actually saw this in the theater and regretted it immediately. I'm a fan of pretty much everybody in this, and to this day, I wonder if they all were being held with a gun to their head and forced to make it, because it is the worst that anyone from either Saturday Night Live or SCTV has ever made into a film. It is so... It's supposed to be... It's advertised as a comedy, but it's really more of a horror film, and it is repugnant. It's repellent when you watch it. It's so gross and so disgusting, and it's not funny, and our lead character is an asshole that you're supposed to identify with. I'm talking about the only film directed by Dan Aykroyd. It's Nothing But Trouble, in which Dan actually plays several roles, and so does John Candy. Dan Aykroyd, his main character in it is he plays the judge, and he has, and I gave James one of the pictures because I know some people might not believe me. He literally has a nose that is a penis. So that shows you the level that we're dealing with as far as the humor. Here's your story. Chevy Chase and Demi Moore are driving to New Jersey, and they take a detour, and they end up in Vulcanvania, a place that nobody's ever heard of. They're pulled over by John Candy and taken to the judge. And the judge is Mr. Dicknose, as I mentioned. And it turns out that for decades, he has been capturing people that he considers to be scumbags or whatever and executing them. He puts them on a roller coaster that goes through this thing called Mr. Bone Stripper and literally strips the flesh from their bones and shoots the bones against a target, and they're in a big pile out back. And when you watch this thing, you're not sure what to think. Am I supposed to think this is funny? Am I supposed to think it's scary? Am I supposed to think it's disgusting? I don't know, but it's horrifying in a completely different way. It is absolutely disgusting. It is not funny. When you think about as talented as John Candy was at the end of his career, because this was right before he passed away. He was stuck in this, and what was that? Canadian Bacon, and there was one other one that I'm forgetting, but he was in a bunch of stuff that was just god awful right after he had done what I consider to be one of his best films, which was Only the Lonely, which was a really wonderful romantic comedy. But this film is terrible. It's an insult to comedy, and I don't know what the hell drugs that Dan Aykroyd was doing, but this thing is not meant for human consumption.
Yeah, that looks pretty crappy. I haven't seen it.
But look at the nose.
Yes, I see. Thank you. I didn't need.
And it comes off, by the way. He takes it off at one point.
So
Wagons East. Thank you, Tracy.
Mm-hmm. So yes, well, that was pleasant. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Now, I know some of you are really surprised by the fact that I put Star Trek Generations as number 2 on my bad list. Why? Because you were probably expecting me to put it as number 1 on my bad list, because it really is just a complete offense. But I have to talk about something else that's painfully obvious. Everybody's going to know what it is long before I say the name, so I'm just going to say, Misa pick for number 1.
Yes.
Possibly the most racist film of the beginning to launch the 21st century. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
And it's not just because of Jar Jar Binks either.
No. We are gonna go down there.
Yeah, the Japanese aliens, and then the Jewish Shylock Watto.
Yeah.
I mean, my God.
Yeah, it basically, for some reason, George Lucas just decided to take all of his pent-up racism and shove it into one film, I guess. And, you know, oh, man. No, yes, Jar Jar is horrid. I mean, everybody knows that. Jar Jar, from a technical standpoint, was quite an achievement, however. Because there had never been a fully realized CG character interacting with people in the way that Jar Jar does up to that point. And so in that respect, yeah, from a technical standpoint, great. But, you know, at the end of Star Wars Episode 1, you've realized that, boy, you know, George Lucas has managed to get some incredibly flat, boring, and god-awful performances out of Harrison Ford, Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson, Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, he just gets all these great actors and then gets the worst possible performance out of them because he doesn't know how to direct. And you know, it was, and there were some things that are just laughably stupid. I mean, okay, so they take Anakin, who is 9 years old in this, before the Jedi Council. He's got the highest midi-chlorian count that anyone has ever recorded. And Yoda actually says, oh, he's too old to begin the training. It's like, he's freaking 9. Did not anybody see that this might be a problem when they were putting this thing together? Because, I mean, yeah, I could buy that with Luke. Luke was supposed to be like, you know, somewhere around 18 to 20 when Yoda said that he was too old to start training. Fine. But a 9-year-old? And then they show those little kids that look like they're like 7, 8 years old with their lightsabers. Yeah, let's take a 7-year-old and hand them a weapon that can burn and cut through anything. There's a good idea. Nothing about the, hey, let's take all the excitement that was Star Wars and turn it into disputes over taxation of trade routes. Because
that's exciting.
Yeah, that's what the kids want these days. This movie just began the train wreck that was the prequel trilogy. Now, I know that a lot of people said, well, episode 8 or episode 7, it was a lot better than the prequels. Well, yeah, you know what? Watching my cat take a dump in the litter box is a lot better than the prequels. I'm sorry. The fact that episode 7 didn't do as badly, that's good. And now Deck Rush is, of course, trying to defend the lightsaber things. They were safety blades. Yeah. I'm not handing my kid a safety sword.
Well, and again, as I've said with films, when you have a film series, you should not have to read books to understand something.
Yeah.
It should stand on its own. If they do not explain it in the film, it's idiotic.
Right.
And by the way, as much as I disliked Phantom Menace, the Clone Wars, the second one was just dreadful. That was even worse.
But keep in mind, Attack of the Clones,
yeah,
and Revenge of the Sith were in the 21st century. That'll be next week.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's I couldn't include those. The prequel trilogy just absolutely ruined Star Wars. And to me, it just never recovered. The Mary Sue Star Wars that we're getting now, I'm not sold on, but we'll see what happens with Rogue One this fall. The one thing I'll say about episode 1, and the funny thing is, and it is kind of funny, that in 1999, now at that point, you and I had not talked in like 15 years. Because, I went off into the Army, went my ways, you stayed in Santa Rosa, blah, blah, blah. So by 1999, we hadn't seen or heard from each other in like 15 years.
Yep.
And we both saw the same screening at the same theater.
Yes.
Of this film and did not bump into each other. We didn't find out we were both there until 20 years after that. It's like,
I've still got that ticket, the special ticket that looks like the poster.
Oh yeah, I lost my ticket years ago, but yeah, Tim and I were both employees of a certain chain of restaurants that was selling Star Wars goodies, and all the managers got special screenings to see Star Wars. Like what was it, a couple of weeks early or something?
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks early.
And it was really cool, actually. It was a cool event. They basically rented out the entire theater in Jack London Square in Oakland, California. There was a full buffet there. You could mingle and eat, and we mingled and ate and did not see Tim. And then they had the movie playing in every theater, and you just picked a theater, sat down, and watched the movie. And I will say this, after watching the film for that first time, as Tim, I guess, was running off to take a dump or something, Oh, you're
Yes.
not taking a dump.
No, I'm actually grabbing. This is one of the things that we.
Oh, do you have the ticket there?
No, this is one of the things that we got. We gave away, and it was the Emperor like looking into the little thing. It lit up and
Magic mirror on the wall.
You push it, and it still lights up. Like it. See.
Who's the most evil of them?
Yeah.
But I will say this: after seeing episode 1 for the first time, I thought that the 3-way lightsaber duel at the end of that film was awesome. However, there was nothing else about that film that was memorable. The CG, even though from a technical standpoint was quite an achievement, I mean, if you look at the battle of the Gungans versus the battle droids, it does look like a computer did it. You know, everything you see there just looks fake. Oh, me have bigger boombas. Almost every line of dialogue from Jar Jar Binks is groan-worthy.
Yes.
I can't believe they pushed Jar Jar so hard. The poor kid that played Anakin, I mean, I'm sure that at this point he's probably still in therapy over that. It's really creepy that, Padme was so much older than him and they were trying to set early love interest. And it's like, okay, so what is she, she's a teenage pedophile? You know, what is... I mean, there was... yeah. And, of course, let's not forget... and here's the thing. The pod racing thing, there were some cool elements to it, but it was way too long. We did not... that would be like if you had a movie and, you know what, in the middle of the movie, you had a car race and you showed the entire race. It's just boring after a while. I'm sorry. So... that's just... that movie hurt. It really, really hurt. It just... And what happened? The video cut out again? Gosh, dang it. Tim, check your video. Well, no, I don't know if Tim noticed, so that's why I said that. Anyway, so that's it for our lovely list of fun today. So, Tim?
Yes.
What's your video pick?
My video pick is a delightful film that many have dreamed of owning, of loving, of caressing, of holding. I'm talking about, of course, the deluxe director's cut edition of Lethal Weapon 4, which I don't have on my hand right now. But is it great? No, but it was a fun movie, and I loved the Lethal Weapon franchise. I'm not as big a fan of Mel as I used to be, surprisingly. But for a while there, he was one of our reigning action stars, and he did make a lot of good films until he made his Jesus torture porn film. But anyway. What's your pick?
Wow. And by the way, I guess Jake Lloyd, who played Anakin, is in fact in a psychiatric facility.
Oh, great. You just insulted the mentally ill.
Well, it could be in part because he was so hated for it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually a causal factor. But it's kind of funny that you didn't have your video with you because I forgot to grab mine right before we sat down. So I don't have mine with me either. But it is actually a classic from the 90s. My wife and I watched it together just a couple of nights ago, just thinking we were going to watch a good movie from the 90s before this, and I forgot how awesome it really is. And part of it is because of the very unique style of its director, Terry Gilliam. And that would be the 12 Monkeys. If you have not seen the 12 Monkeys, the 12 Monkeys is a really messed up time travel movie.
Oh, it's
and a really well done one, actually, in that it kind of is more realistic than most. In that, like, how many times do we have a time travel movie where someone shows up from the future and they're like, "All right, come with me if you want to live." What? I'm from the future. Oh, okay. And then, how do you convince people that you're actually from the future? And this guy ends up in an insane asylum, and rightly so. And you really, for about half the film, about half the film, you're not sure if he's just crazy. In all honesty,
I think this is actually one of the best Bruce Willis performances, by the way.
Yeah, Bruce was awesome in it.
I think he's fantastic in it.
And Brad Pitt was really good in it too. Brad Pitt was a loon in this film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually probably one of the more linear, oddly enough, one of the more linear Terry Gilliam films.
Yeah, although the film does jump around a little bit, not as much as you commonly see in his films. But yeah, Brad Pitt in this film, I absolutely plays a convincing loon.
He does in California as well.
Right. But and Bruce Willis, man, and those opening scenes in the asylum when he's like drooling on himself and just completely out of it, it's like you're thinking, okay, he's just a mental patient. You know, he's just crazy. But then little bits and pieces can you kind of, well, maybe not, you know. And maybe he's actually the cause of what he's looking for, but maybe he's not. But wait a minute, you know. So it is really interesting. And if you haven't seen it, you owe yourself to see it. The 12 Monkeys. And by the way, adapted into a not horrible series on the Sci-Fi Channel.
I actually haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's a very different take on it. The Cole character, the character that Bruce Willis plays, totally different kind of character. And they seem to have gotten their time travel better to where they're not like drooling on the floor after they go through their time travel. So they're a little more functional. But yeah, but the nice thing is that the person has to be convinced that the time travel is real, has genuine evidence to support it by the time she is convinced that he's actually traveling through time. As opposed to just, oh, okay. But that's going to wrap it up for this, the first episode of the Untitled Show about nerdy stuff on the Untitled Show Network here on YouTube. Be sure to please let your friends know about how awesome we are. Check if you are subscribed. Thank you. If you're not subscribed, hit the little button and subscribe, please. We'd really appreciate that. And no names for the new name. I have no idea what he's talking about there. God, he totally threw me off. Thanks a lot, James. So please subscribe. Keep an eye out for upcoming content. We're going to have reviews and other stuff on this channel, and everything on this channel will be dedicated to the fun, the nerdy, and all that good stuff. Okay, that's what you're talking about. Okay. And don't forget to check out Tim and the Bitter Bastards podcast, because he's a bitter bastard who likes to be bitter. Yes, I know. Thank you.
Okay, hold on. I'll turn off the mute so they can hear me too. I was just doing it in the background.
James just whispering in my ear that it's on SoundCloud. I know that. I was going to say that. Thank you.
Tell them about the Facebook.
Maybe just put the links in here, then people wouldn't have to listen to me.
Yeah, I'll do my job. You do yours. Facebook. Tell them about the Facebook.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell them about the Facebook if you'll stop saying weird stuff in my ear.
Like a producer does.
Don't forget that. What's the Facebook called again? Is All Things or Cinema? All Things Cinema.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Don't let anyone tell you.
What is it?
I'm looking it up.
Oh, you're looking it up? You created it. You should know what the name of it is.
Hey, guys, if you want to check out one of the coolest Facebooks ever, check out Everything Cinema at Everything Cinema on Facebook. Because
its creator knows it so well that he had to look up the name of it. Even though that is in the links.
You should do a damn closer, or are we going to sit here and
So let me restate. The Bitter Bastard Nerdcast on SoundCloud. I also have a Facebook page. Please check out the Facebook page. There's announcements and different stuff on it, and always be a link to each new episode. So there you go.
Yay. So this has been the Untitled Show about nerdy stuff. We are nerds with no titles because we just couldn't think of one. So our new name is Untitled Show.